Hello and welcome to today's randomized gaming weekday stream. I am your host, Random Gamer Riven, and it is Thursday the 21st of May 2020. And in today's daily stream we will be looking at Omega Boost on the PlayStation 1. It was developed by Polyphony Digital and it was published by Sony, and Polyphony are best known for, of course, being the studio behind the Gran Turismo series, and this is basically about their only game they made that was not a racing game, which is a bit of a shame, because I actually think it's good to diversify your studio into more than just turning out one genre, else you become a bit stale, and when that genre gets a bit tired, it sort of runs out. Now, this is developed by Polyphony, but one of the programmers of Panzer Dragoon's Wheel did work on this, hence why it very much has a bit of a Sega feel to it. Admittedly, the fact it's got mechs in it, it's interesting. Mech designs and stuff can be really good, but occasionally you play games and think, did they need to have mechs in them? Or did they do them anything interesting with the mechs? Because games like Armored Core are incredibly good, but just because Japan often tends to go for sort of mechanized games, and sometimes you think, did they need to have mechs in here? I'm just actually going to go through the tutorial missions just to begin with, just to get a feel for the game.
Omega Boost. It's all set. Carry out the mission carefully. Caution.
It does also support analog controls as well.
Caution.
Just scan. Hold down L1 and you zoom on them. So this has an auto lock-in. It's a very fast-paced game. This is actually the PAL version, but I think it's largely PAL optimized, so it's actually pretty good full screen. In fact, let me just double check. I'm not. Yeah, this one looks to be largely PAL optimized, which is good to see. Nice, quick, easy starting mission. That's a good tutorial. I need to get a bit of practice. I've not really played this before. I bought this a long time ago, dirt cheap. It was like, oh, Sony did this. Oh, I'll pick this up. And one of those many games I rarely, if ever, have played. So, just untangling my headset just before I go to the next mission. Oh, why is this tangled up today? Oh. So I've had to turn down the in-game. As you saw there, at the start, I was just turning down the in-game music. That's because this does have a few licensed tracks. Interestingly, the licensed music used is different per region. So the Japanese has slightly different licensed music, or basically copyright basically full-on music songs from Japanese groups. I think the US one has some Western US music, and the European one I think may have a power. Basically, they're all from different bands, the Cut and the Grubbers. So each version of the game has slightly different songs. So if you ever wanted a complete soundtrack, you'd actually need all three versions of the game. I'm just checking the sound effects because I've got to make sure no music plays, because if any, even though I've turned it down, I don't want to suddenly find there's a cutscene or something where they didn't turn down the music. Up, down, left.
Omega Boost. It's all set. Carry out the mission carefully. Caution.
So the flight controls are quite nice, I will admit. just realised it is inverted controls, which I absolutely detest. So I might just see if I can flip them back. Although some early games in this...
Are you ready? Good luck.
Controls, can I invert? Yeah, I just absolutely loathe inverted controls. They're great on flight, realistic flight games and not much else. I think there's a feature developers stick in.
Omega boost. It's all set. Carry out the mission carefully.
So this is very much an arcade style shooter. With full, I mean, I think this is kind of a bit on rails. Okay, there we go. We scanned him. So the controls are actually very solid, very smooth. I think they said this largely runs at 60 frames a second. I'm not entirely sure. Okay, that's that trial done.
Omega boost. It's all set. Carry out the mission carefully.
We've got a nice 3D transparency, yes. Was I supposed to hit them, or was I supposed to... It does control really well with the ammo. This is one of those sort of much later PS1 games that really they got to grips with everything by now. So, and in fact, some of the really late PS1 games begin to start looking like almost like PS2 games because they were so used and all the tricks. Merely the hardware itself was not particularly good. It was pretty poor hardware, so I'm actually impressed with some of the results because the PS1 was the weakest of the three machines. In fact, didn't really have much in the way of 2D capacity at all. People always say about the Saturn can't do 3D, which is rubbish, but the truth is the PS1 couldn't do 2D properly either. They had to do some weird methods to actually get it to run. It's quite interesting, I was reading the other day. See if I can get them all this time. Yes, so very, very good flight controls. Was that 50? No, a couple more. Oh, I just missed out on the last one. Okay, let's jump into the main game on Omega Boost.
Are you ready? Good luck. Set the primary target to fortress. All systems cleared to approach Planet Eta. Destroy the shield of the Planet Eta and secure the entry. Target the time shaft. Good luck.
Okay, this is that's very reminds me a lot of Starblade and the original sort of the Vector games with that mission introduction sequence. Now, this is where it does get very nice in Mega Boost, because I know if you've got to kill all the enemies, you get additional bonus rankings. So there is a proper scoring system in this.
Be careful.
I'll be honest, I did this first stage earlier because it had been so long since I actually played this. As I said, I've not played this much, with a huge amount, but I thought I'd at least get to... My main gun actually does only the lock-ons from the damage unit. Yes, hi Daniel, welcome to the stream. Yeah, this is definitely a very good looking PS1 game.
Warning. Undefined enemies approaching.
We've got some really big 3D models in this as well. So it's actually, for a PS1 game, it is very impressive. Although I must admit, this opening mission set in space is a little dull. Well, it's got proper, so you can properly move around the boss, so... And I can also track the boss as well, so... Blow up all his guns, as you can see here. The fighters, so I'm going to go for some of them. And there it blows. Oh yeah, this is actually a very good looking, very, very smoothly playing PS1 game.
Zone has been completed.
This is the PAL version, but I think it's at least semi-optimized.
Level is now upgraded. Entering the next zone.
Because I've not got, it's fairly full screen, so... And they may have adjusted the speed for 50 Hz as well. It definitely doesn't feel slow or sluggish, it feels smooth and fast.
Omega boost. It's all set. Carry out the mission carefully. Caution.
Yeah, an update of the remake would probably be really nice, because I think this is one of those games that may have probably been actually been better on the PS2.
Caution.
This apparently is, unlike Panzer Dragoon, this isn't that big a game. So as I said, one of the coders I definitely checked did work on. I checked his name on Moby Games. Did work on this and Panzer Dragoon's Wheel. He was a sub-programmer on the Wheel, and he was the main programmer on this. It's so rare to see, as I said, Polyphony's Digital to do anything other than Gran Turismo, which is a shame, because this actually, it's nice to see studios break out their comfort zone, because I played the Gran Turismos, they're nice enough. I mean, they're realistic racings, they do get a bit dry, but they're solid games. I wouldn't say they're the best races. I'd play Daytona USA over them any time, but Yes, it does actually, very much so. Zone of the Enders probably actually better. If I'm being honest, it controls better than Zone of the Enders. I have finished both of the Zone of the Ender games, and they're not bad. They could be better though, I think is the word. The Hideo Kojima perhaps not being as good, showing that he needs to perhaps understand fast-paced action games better. Something that the Metal Gear series has also struggled with, a lot of not necessarily being that fast-paced. So supposedly this game has a lot of bosses action. It's not apparently that big, but I think there are an awful lot of unlocks in it. I mean, this is really fast-paced gameplay. Very nice as well. Another boss. So this is my type of game actually. I must admit. But I will admit I haven't, despite owning this for quite some time, quite a few years now. Oh, so sub-boss straight to the main boss. Not so keen on that. I like a bit of troops. I don't like the sub-boss to surprise you right before the main boss. But yeah, very, very tight controls, very good playing. Okay, this actually makes some really good use of the mechs, actually, I will say. It is quite an obscure one. I think it basically got released at a time... I mean, it was given no fanfare. I mean, I just picked it up one day because I saw this looks... Because it basically said Sony on it, so I thought, well, it's probably going to be quite good. And looks like it's got giant robots in it, so we'll see. And sure enough, it's actually a pretty decent game. I mean, I played it briefly when I got it. I mean, if I'm being honest, this is probably the first time I played it since I bought it. And that was quite some time ago. But yes, it's a very nice game. I think it might be a bit expensive now. I don't think it's like super expensive, but I've got a feeling its price is definitely... I mean, I paid peanuts for this when it came out, when I bought it, not when it came out. Okay, this guy is rushing me. Your main gun's a bit useless, that I will say at the boss. It is more... I'm relying almost entirely on my... to basically Saint... This bot. Okay, this boss is a bit repetitive. You basically just line up, wait for him to appear. Dash, turn, do the lock on. And rinse and repeat. But yeah, very nice. Certainly better looking than Armour Core. Probably it's more arcadey than Armour Core. Armour Core is a much more in-depth game. Armour Core is another great mecha series on the PS1. Again, you've also got front missions as well. Are you okay? Yeah, that's getting a bit annoying. Oh, that boss has run off. I don't think it's that big a game either, but that's 2 levels cleared.
Viper boost ready. Entering the next zone.
I'm hopeful I'm going to see some non-space stages soon. Yeah, it does sound like... Are you okay? Okay, I'm just going to skip the cutscenes. I just want to avoid, because the opening intro has the music playing in the background, and I wanted to avoid any chance that if you have the sound turned down, the... So basically a lot of the scores actually getting the enemies, well I won't be getting a good score on this stage. Although I must admit, Panzer Raccoon, I would disagree there. This is not actually that action-packed at the minute. It's Panzer Raccoon, certainly when you look at the later stages, the wheel gets very hectic. In fact, visually, I'm going to be honest, I think Panzer Raccoon's wheel probably looks better at the minute. In terms of the environment, I think the character models are better in this at present, but the environments, I've just seen such, had the space and now we've got this slightly dull world environment, so I want to see some slightly better terrain. I wonder if this is a game where they concentrated on the game's playing speed, but suffered a lot with the visual design. Okay, so the sub-boss. So you have got a behind view as well. Are you okay? Yeah. I do hope this game gets harder. At the minute it's not particularly. I mean, the tracking's actually much better than Zone of Endor. Zone of Endor is a real problem with the fact that you can't track. I mean, the controls are really, really tight in this. I've picked them up so easily, which is always a really good sign of a good game. But I just want to see some slightly more destructive environments. The environment's really fast-paced combat. The character model looks really nice. There he goes, blown up on the surface of the planet, and we've got some nicely active cutscenes, although I wouldn't necessarily say I would argue you don't necessarily need. No, I haven't played the recent remake. I really have no interest in playing a poorly made remake. Unfortunately, the remake looks really, really shoddy. The PS2 version was actually really nice version. It's one of those we don't have at Randomised Gaming. It's one I'd like to add to my own personal collection. So. I do like the destructibility of these ships, in fact you can just literally wreck every part of them. A lot of the time you seem to be flying around in like a 3D, a circular orb. I'm going to be honest, so far I haven't really felt much in the way of danger. I do feel everything feels a bit... Oh, that actually shot me there. You just need to keep boosting. Maybe it's because I'm an armour corvette, but you just keep boosting. Yeah, Zweel and Panzer Raccoon. I mean, we've got a playthrough of Panzer Raccoon, the original, on the channel on the Saturn, and the environments are just amazing. So there's a weird bug at the minute. I notice the concurrent viewers is just utterly broken on YouTube. I'm having to check the analysis to see how many viewers we have.
Entering the next zone.
I was only rank C. I think I took too much damage. Oh, and I missed too many of those fighters. So obviously your rank is based on how quickly you blow up the enemy.
Omega boost. It's all set. Carry out the mission carefully.
I'm slightly reminded a bit of Sin and Punishment as well.
Caution.
This seems to be scan button rapidly, shoot the enemies. You would literally... So, this is what I'm not so impressed with. It's basically hit the scan button as rapidly as possible to hit the targets. hit them. And hope you get them before they appear. I feel a bit like there's not much it's on rails, but it feels like the on rails are a little bit more restricted than normal. This is going to be an awful score because I've barely killed any of them. I'm having to basically hit the scan button constantly. Just to say, I don't think this looks as good as the desert in the original Panzer Raccoon.
Be careful.
So yeah, the remake of Panzer Raccoon I think has been very disappointing. I noticed all the chat on it's disappeared very quickly as well. The chat on Streets of Rage 4 seems to have disappeared as well very quickly. Sign that perhaps both games aren't particularly that good. I know Streets of Rage 4 I've been a bit unimpressed with. They've tried to copy it and it's not actually been that good. It's alright, but it's got flaws. Panzer Raccoon, the remake, was deeply bad. It was a really cheaply made, nasty remake. Oops, just read that onto the full boss already? No, this is another sub-boss that appeared. Or is this the next form of that sub-boss? So it's really fast, but at the minute there's just not much... basically using the track button to scan the bosses. You literally are holding down the track button the whole time. So L1, I'm literally double tapping to track, scan, and then to this is... Now I have a feeling that's the first sub-boss. Yeah, so straight... Okay, so I'm not too impressed with the fact that you do the sub-boss and then the main boss straight after. It's the first 4 stages, that's what happened every time. And again, I'm just going to constantly boost around. I do hope this game increases in difficulty. So far this has been someone with my skill level with sort of these type of games. This is really, really easy. I mean, Armour Core is a vastly harder game. Will give you a lot more longevity. I mean, literally just avoid the... I'm just boosting, avoiding any area where I might be in front of the guns and just... Oh, this one's got quite a lot of health. And the guns do so little damage that you might as well just do lock-on lasers the whole time. Okay. Just use the super to mesh absolutely destroy the boss. So clear time rank D, yeah, I didn't kill anywhere near enough enemies.
Entering the next zone. Omega boost. It's all set. Carry out the mission carefully.
I'm getting a theme that the stages may not be the most interesting of environments. Okay, so you actually have a slowdown, and this stage, probably the first stage, you actually probably want to use the slowdown. Okay, this stage is definitely much harder. Can't see anything.
Warning, undefined enemies approaching.
Yes, that bit running down the corridors was actually rather tricky. That was the first time I actually felt any threat up until now. Okay, this really is seat of the pants stuff at the minute because I am one hit away from death now. Continue, yes.
Omega boost. It's all set. Carry out the
Oh,
mission
we got to do
carefully.
the stage over again. Okay, this actually slows you down, so so one thing we'll say is not an easy correction thing if you do make a mistake on this stage. Don't have room to boost much either. If you boost, you're going to hit walls, so...
Be careful.
So that boss just sort of ends midway through the fight, it seems. Okay, let's see if I'm going to avoid less damage than I did before. Okay, that section's dreadful. That one's really badly done.
Warning, undefined enemies approaching.
Intensity, yeah. Should have saved the super attack for this boss, it seems. I can't see some of the attacks particularly well. It's got like a load of rockets in this form and they're not clear at all to see. Yeah, it actually really reminds me of the stage in Orta, actually, where you're being chased by... Yeah, the fourth stage in Japanza and the later sort of one they did in the same area. Oh, it's going to get me again, this boss. Right, let's see if I can give it another whirl.
Omega boost. It's all set. Carry out the mission carefully.
Let me just double check the controls. So there's definitely a slow button. Yeah, it's the R1 button which does that. That's slow, but it...
Are you okay? Are you okay?
I see that thing just sort of blows up afterwards. Okay. Come on. Come on, boost at this point, boost. Yeah, the controls at that bit with the... We've got the... You can't slow down at this bit, so basically... come on, boost. Go goes in like a circular motion. I have to remember that. That bit's terrible. This stage, the controls of those bits are... There's a lot of the staging design is... the stage design is very bland. Finally. Okay, that was probably the hardest level so far. That was vastly harder than all the other stages. But partly that was due to the, I would say, not ideal controls at this point.
Transporting completed. Updating all systems. System alert. Analyzing Rhino interface. Detecting high energy potential. Target match 98% of planet Eta. High energy Alpha Core. And now approaching. Extreme caution is recommended. Omega boost. Ready to attack. Carry out the mission carefully. Caution.
Okay, now we got more.
Caution.
Got a lot more enemies incoming.
Caution.
But yeah, the stage design I think is really letting this down. The staging is very... I can see why this perhaps didn't do that well as a shooter, because it just looks very bland in terms of the stage design. It needs something a bit... The design... Panzer Dragoon just has vastly more interesting and memorable stages. Clearly Polyphonics went for the engine, but I think there is a certain amount of visualness you do need to go with a good game. Oh, this is quite nice. We've got a lot of ships coming at me. That's nice to see. Nice to battle out in an enemy fleet. You don't seem to get your health fully back after each mission either, so... Everything's actually pretty much in a small... The arenas all seem to be, except for that last one, largely like a small 3D circle. That last one was basically forcing us down, so I'm just going to try and... I think the better you score in this, the more power-ups you may get. I assume your performance equates to some of the bonuses you get. Yeah, these sections, the controls are really good. In that previous stage, in the tunnel bit, the controls were awful because the boosting didn't seem to... You could boost, but because it was... Oh, that's quite nice. You guess you get the ship. Yeah, the music's mainly rock and roll music, so when I was listening to it, it's a totally different... basically, if you like rock and roll stuff, you'll love this game's OST. Not like the ambient music you get for Panzer Dragoon. Yeah, I think this probably would have been better if this was all in these sort of 3 roaming sections. So there goes the ship.
Warning, undefined enemies approaching.
And now here comes the boss. Oh, we've got a large snake thing. Okay, this is very similar to that boss we fought on the previous stage. Some sort of snake dragon.
Commencing all systems. Omega boost. Ready to attack. Carry out the mission carefully.
Okay, that last state. This.
Caution.
I see you actually carrying with the amount of health you had. Oh, that's annoying. I thought you'd get a reset. Yeah, that boss also was very similar to the one we saw earlier in this game on the sort of desert stage. So this game's quite punishing. It obviously does not. You continue with your health from the previous stage, much like Panzer Raccoon did. The original that kept your health over from the previous stages. So I just need to be a bit more defensive this time.
Caution.
I think my opinion of this, it controls nice in these sections, plays well, the models all look good, and it's got some nice effects, but as a whole, level design is very bland. Could do with more enemies. The fact you get the bosses straight after the sub-boss, this is just... What's the point of that?
Caution.
And largely you are just literally scanning, doing the scan, so it would have been nice if you had a bit more free roaming control, I think. I think I'd say Panzer Raccoon is definitely a better game. And on the PS1 front, I would say Armour Core is definitely more of a... I know this game has only got like 9 stages, and I think there are quite a lot of extras to unlock, but still, I'd say Armour Core gives you a lot more. I mean, Armour Core's probably not quite as good visually, although Armour Core's got much better stage design, so...
Be careful. Alert.
Yeah, we will compare it to Panzer Raccoon because it was such a good game. Sin and Punishment as well. Again, if you look at Sin and Punishment, which released around a similar time, maybe Sin and Punishment slightly later. Sin and Punishment is definitely a better game than this in terms of on-rail shooting action. Armour Core again says probably better mech game. So I mean, even Gun Griffin on the Saturn as well. I mean, Gun Griffins on the Saturn are really good, fast mech-based action. So really, this is I mean, it's not terrible. It's got some nice gameplay. It's well worth the play, but I wouldn't say pay a lot for it. It's not. It doesn't stand out as well as Armored Core, Gun Griffin, Panzer Dragoon, anything like that. Even something like Bulk Slash on the Sega Saturn, which is another. Trying to save as much of my energy as possible this time for the boss. Should actually just boost away from this thing. I mean, that's one of the tactics. There's not much in the way of tactics. Just boost away, hit the thing, stay out of the gunfire, keep boosting, boost away again, go back and attack. And keep boosting while you're attacking to avoid getting shot. So I've covered Armored Core 1 previously in a video. However, I haven't covered Armored Core 2, blah 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 2. Basically, there's about 3 Armored Cores on the PS1. There is about 5 Armored Cores on the PS2. So what I will do is I will actually cover. I might do next week. Maybe we'll cover some PS2 games, and maybe I'll fit in one of the Armored Cores on PS2. We haven't actually done too many PS2 games, so I might do. Yeah, maybe I'll do a PS2 week next week. So maybe I'll fit in one of the Armored Cores next week. Probably something like Armored Core 3 or Silent Line. Oh, you are kidding me. That explosion blew me up. That is really, really annoying.
Omega boost. Ready to attack. Carry out the mission carefully.
That has a fatal death attack. Nil points! Nil points. That's really annoying. That just blew me up with all my health as well.
Caution.
Oh, this time it's actually giving me all my health back as well when I restart. I didn't do that the first time though.
Caution.
However, I think if I'm being honest, I think you and everyone else, I'm all a bit Omega boosted out. Yeah, this is... I wouldn't say this is the best run and gun on PS1 either. I think there are probably a few better ones out there. Like we've got a couple others as well. So yeah, I think I'm going to say this is a sort of hit and miss title in my opinion.
Caution. 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 Caution.
Okay, everyone, that's it from me. Have a good night, and I'll see you in tomorrow's stream.